She lowered her voice to sound like a man. She wore black turtlenecks to mirror Steve Jobs. She stared without blinking, creating an aura of hypnotic intensity. Elizabeth Holmes did not just build a company, she built a myth. And for a time, she seduced some of the most powerful men in the world into believing she was the future of medicine. But then the myth cracked, and the fall of Elizabeth Holmes became one of the greatest cautionary tales in the history of power. Here is the paradox. Her rise and her collapse were born from the same qualities. The same traits that made her magnetic also made her dangerous. And if you study her carefully, you will uncover timeless lessons about seduction, strategy, and the deadly edge where ambition becomes delusion. The first lesson: create aura before reality. Holmes sold an image long before she had a product. Her deep voice, her uniform, her piercing eyes, these were not accidents. They were weapons. She understood that powerful people invest not in facts, but in feelings. She crafted an aura of destiny so strong that investors ignored the lack of proof. This is the first law of seduction. People believe what they want to believe, if you give them the right theater. But here lies the danger. If the theater is hollow, the curtain will eventually fall. The second lesson: seduce power with what they lack. Holmes understood the psychology of old men desperate for relevance. She promised them access to youth, innovation, and history. Henry Kissinger, George Shultz, Rupert Murdoch, all were intoxicated not by science, but by the idea that they would be remembered as visionaries for backing her. She didn't just pitch technology, she pitched immortality, and they surrendered. This is the truth. If you want to seduce power, do not offer what they have. Offer what they secretly crave. The third lesson: control perception with discipline. Holmes spoke in mantras, repeated lines, and controlled every public detail. Black turtlenecks, bare face, no blinking. She became a character larger than herself, and for years it worked. Because the world does not reward authenticity, it rewards consistency. She performed her image with fanatical discipline, and the world applauded, until the cracks began to show. The fourth lesson: protect the myth at all costs. Holmes refused transparency. She silenced whistleblowers. She hid data. She doubled down on secrecy, believing the image could outlast the truth. But here lies the paradox. Mystery builds power only when you can sustain it. When mystery is exposed as manipulation, it turns into scandal. What once created devotion now breeds betrayal. The fifth lesson: downfall comes when seduction turns to arrogance. Holmes believed she was untouchable. She believed her image was stronger than reality. And when reality struck, when the machines failed, when the tests gave false results, when lives were at risk, her empire collapsed. The same voice, the same turtlenecks, the same unblinking stare that once seduced became symbols of deception. The spell broke, and her myth rotted into mockery. But here is the most dangerous truth. Elizabeth Holmes was not a fraud because she dreamed big. She was a fraud because she refused to balance vision with substance. Ambition without grounding is poison. Seduction without truth is suicide. And this is where the fall of Elizabeth Holmes holds its sharpest lesson. So what can the dangerous woman learn from the rise and fall of Elizabeth Holmes? First, craft an aura, but root it in substance. Aura seduces. Image opens doors. But if there is nothing behind the curtain, the same aura will become evidence against you. Build theatre, but let the theatre conceal real foundations. Otherwise, you will be remembered not as a visionary, but as a fraud. Second, study what power secretly craves. Powerful men are rarely seduced by beauty alone. They are seduced by relevance, by legacy, by immortality. Holmes understood this truth perfectly. She just delivered it with lies. Learn to identify the hidden hunger in powerful people and offer it strategically. That is how you turn their strength into your leverage. Third, discipline is seduction. Holmes's image worked for as long as it did because she never broke character. The world rewards consistency more than brilliance. You do not need to be extraordinary. You need to be unwavering. A dangerous woman controls her narrative with precision, but she also knows when to adapt before the cracks appear. Fourth, mystery is double-edged. Mystery amplifies allure, but it must be backed by credibility. Use mystery to create distance, not to hide incompetence. If your silence protects strength, you will be worshipped. If your silence hides weakness, you will be destroyed. Fifth, never believe your own myth. The deadliest mistake Holmes made was not lying to others. It was lying to herself. She began to believe the theatre was reality, and once she did, she lost the ability to adapt, pivot, or admit failure. The most dangerous woman must always see herself clearly, even when the world bows at her feet. Self-delusion is the sharpest blade that cuts power down. And here is the haunting paradox. Elizabeth Holmes is not unique. She is a mirror of every ambitious woman who confuses performance with power, aura with reality, seduction with substance. For years, she was worshipped as the youngest female billionaire in the world. Today, she is a cautionary tale, remembered not for her brilliance, but for her betrayal. So the question is not, was Elizabeth Holmes evil? The question is, how close are you to becoming her? Do you cultivate aura without building depth? Do you seduce power without offering value? Do you protect your image at the expense of truth? Because if you do, your fall is already being written. The lesson is this: build your myth, yes. Craft your aura, yes. Seduce, yes. But always anchor the theatre in reality. Otherwise, one day, the very performance that made you untouchable will become the mask they tear apart. And when that day comes, you will not just fall, you will be devoured. Elizabeth Holmes rose by seduction. She fell by arrogance. And in her ashes lies the eternal warning. The game of power will crown you quickly, but it will crucify you faster if you forget that every myth must be backed by truth.